we should be live with the Lessons Learned podcast. Hopefully, you're hearing me live, myself and Chapelmon, or Chapelmon myself, because the cart and the horse, they never get it, never get it together. We're gonna be talking a lot of news. Most of it not so good. In fact, I don't. We this week we don't really have any positive news whatsoever. I'm thinking about we're going to be talking about E3, then no, we're not. So I have like all this stuff on my tab. So let's start with something. Let's work our way to from the more esoteric news to the more controversial ones. Niche Gamer announces that Ouya store and services are shutting down on June 25th. If that sounds vaguely familiar, Ouya was supposed to be this gaming console that was going to be pretty stripped down, very for cheaper games, indie games, that sort of thing. That ran on Android. Essentially, it was taking the idea of mobile gaming and putting it in a tiny console.
Yeah.
And it was crowdfunded. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the whole release, if I remember correctly, was kind of a big
Problem. Yes.
yeah, it wasn't as promised. It was pretty underwhelming, to say the least. That essentially it amounted to like a sort of a like a PlayStation TV for mobile games, for Android games. I feel like there were other issues too in terms of like pricing and compatibility, but I'm not 100% sure. I think the controller wasn't that great.
Yeah.
And then the controllers themselves were pretty expensive.
Pretty
But
much.
if I remember when it released, it retailed for about $100 for the tiny box and one controller. But so essentially the storefront is dead for that now.
Yeah, because most of it was supposed to be. I mean, it has no disc, nothing supposed to Android. It's the diskless console, and it didn't work. So yeah, sorry about that. I mean, it was Android games, and the games that were there were not. I mean, they also made. I think they made a lot of promises that they couldn't keep, and yeah, it didn't work. Sorry, sorry. We tried though. Talking about diskless future, Microsoft and Sony are teaming up for the future of gaming. It's all about PlayStation beating Amazon and Google, and probably also Apple. We'll talk about that in a moment. This partnership is essentially saying, hey, listen, the next generation of consoles might be all diskless. Microsoft already launching a diskless version of the Xbox this year. And that means streaming, and that means digital services, and we need to support that. And so Sony doesn't have the best network, but Microsoft does, and we're still interested in selling hardware in the face of Stadia and everything else. So how about we partner up? We kept saying that we would not, allow, play between the two platforms. So yeah. Here's the link to it. Let me quote from it. It's the article I'm quoting from is from The Verge. Microsoft and Sony unveiled a surprising partnership last week that will see the companies collaborate to develop future cloud solutions. Remember when cloud gaming was all the rage? I guess we're back at that again. 2020 is coming around the corner, and well, I think they just want more of that. So, to create content streaming services, while both companies have spent more than 15 years battling out over PlayStation Xbox sales, Sony is now looking for Microsoft's vast cloud experience to help power the existing and future streaming services, and Microsoft is teaming with a rival to fend the far larger gaming threats. Even though Microsoft itself is, as a company, is pretty large, but in the gaming department, they're still like number 2, maybe? Depending how you rate Nintendo these days. Announcement seems to have been promoted. One thing in particular, Google's reveal of its Stadia cloud streaming service, which was revealed about 2 weeks ago, but still pretty iffy. And yes, both of them have streaming services. So for example, Sony bought a previous streaming. I think they bought two streaming services, and we're trying to put them on the PlayStation Now, and now they call it PlayStation Now, but it hasn't really taken off. So, are we? Is
Hmm.
Amazon and Google, actually Google, forcing a streaming um future, or are we gonna go? Are there everybody's gonna go by the way of the Ouya?
So it's going to be an interesting thing to see because I think the biggest hurdle, and we've mentioned it before and we talked about it, the biggest hurdle when it comes to streaming is the infrastructure between the service and the customers, because um, a lot of places still don't have like high speed internet, and even if they do, it may not be the best.
Mm-hmm.
Or you also have essentially monopolies when it comes to internet providers, and they tend to spread their service out with high costs, like then throttle your speeds depending on how much you pay. But I don't know. So it might be the future of gaming, especially if you have Sony and Microsoft looking at Google and Apple and Amazon and thinking, okay, we need to get on that. This is a serious threat that we
Mm-hmm.
need to invest. Unlike say back when say Nintendo released the Wii, they're like, it's not a they're not our competition. They're targeting a different market, and
Like the
then they
Switch to
turned
Switch,
around
yeah.
and yeah, and then turned around. No, back with like the Wii, with the original Wii, they're
Oh
like,
yeah, too.
nah, the Wii's not our competition. And then of course they ended up adding their own, kind of tacking on their own motion controls when it came to like the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360.
But then
And
again, what happened was the motion controls came and went, right?
yep,
And they're kind of still holding on, especially on Sony because they revived it through the VR. But the VR in Sony is not like gangbusters. It's there.
yeah,
People are using it. People who have it are using it. People who don't have it are not missing it.
yeah. It
So,
seems that it seems like it's the VR isn't like the Wii U where it's collecting dust on somebody's shelf.
mhm.
It seems people are using it because there's new consoles and Sony hasn't dropped it like say their PlayStation Vita.
But it hasn't. Yeah, I think it has
Yeah,
reached
but
a
it hasn't
ceiling.
it,
Yeah.
it hasn't quite taken off like people were expecting it to be, like the next phase of gaming. So it'll be interesting to see if streaming does reach that point. I think in long term it will be the future, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
And talking about Apple, Apple announced is said to be spending more than 500 million on arcade gaming on their Apple Arcade. Apple, it's very interesting because the history of Apple and gaming has been zigzagging, right? Apple way back in the day, when days of Apple II series, right, was a strong contender in gaming because a lot of Apple IIs were, especially in the United States, were sold to schools or were bought by schools. And so a lot of parents then say, well, if you have an Apple in school, I'll buy you an Apple at home. And when you
Hmm.
buy and had a lot of educational software, which is gaming and edutainment, right? The Oregon Trail being one of the most famous, at least in the United States, uh, in the lower 48. And so a lot of kids and young and teenagers were also using the Apple II. But when the Apple migrated to the Macintosh, gaming fell by the wayside because, ironically enough, the Macintosh was supposed to be their serious business machine. But it started at a competitive price, but then when the PC market, both the introduction of consoles and the PC market, the budget PC started coming up, could be expanded upon that. The Mac prices stayed up, and it was only used by limited. At like something like less than 20% of the market was using Mac. I think that was a maximum growth for them, and so it's like, oh, no gaming, right? But then a decade or so later, in the 2000s, when the iPhone comes up and the Apple Store, which was an evolution of the iTunes store. Oh, you can have and games. Oh, you can have games on your phone because it's a very powerful phone. So also, Apple and gaming are back again. So now we have Apple Arcade, part of Apple TV Plus, which is a service that they've been talking for, I think, more than 10 years now, and Apple News Plus. So 500 million. The company has already reported spent over 1 billion on its TV Plus content service. The gaming, it's a gaming subscription service. And if this sounds familiar, because we're going to get into this, the report states that, and I'm quoting from TechCrunch.com, an unfortunate name these days, the report states that in order to receive funding from Apple, developers will have to SKU release on Google Play Store and refrain from taking part in other gaming subscription services, maybe like Stadia or PlayStation Now. After a few months of exclusivity, not a year, not 6 months, just a few months, could be 30 days, could be 90 days, probably like 90 days, developers will be able to release their games on non-mobile platforms such as PC and gaming consoles. It's not only the fact that they are not going to release on streaming, it's on other platforms, period. The company's focused efforts on funding indie titles as opposed to bankrolling AAA studios to create exclusive Epic, like the Epic Store.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like I've heard of this tactic somewhere.
Yeah, we are seeing the spreading of the basically we're seeing the spreading of exclusivity for exclusivity's sake, right?
Yeah. Is this what they call trickle down economics? Is this how the money trickles down?
So now we're going to talk about Epic, because
why not?
Because Epic has been in news for a couple of things, and one of them has been that they have
a sale.
Yeah, they had a sale, but there's two things. They had a sale, which they made a sale without informing the people with the actual products that they were going to do a sale. Now they said they were paying $10 extra to cover the cost of anything lost in that sale. But one of the games that they were putting on sale was a pre-order game, which is Vampire Masquerade. Is Vampire the new Vampire game has come out?
Yeah, the Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah.
Bloodlines.
Yeah, Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines. And they're like, but we weren't informed. What the hell? You're putting our games in sale. Because that's how it works in retail, right? GameStop doesn't go to EA and say, oh, we're going to put your game on sale. Why? Because GameStop has already paid for the stock of games. So if they have 100 titles, they're theirs, right? There's still license agreements and all that and distribution, but essentially they get the stock. They have the stock, so they own it. In digital distribution, it's not like that, because the digital store is a sort of a way through a convenience place to buy these things. But you don't have to supposedly buy from them, right? Mm-hmm. I think Epic is operating on the fact that since they're doling out money, both to cover the cost of the sale as well as doling out money to get exclusives, they said, well, we own the game for a month, so we can do whatever we want. And the companies are going like, nope.
Because it's not exactly a discount. It's not like they're saying like, hey, pre-order, Bloodlines 2. It's Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 for $60 on sale now for $50. It's not exactly a discount. There's a monetary discount. It's for buying a game that's more than $15. They give you a $10 discount, and they give the purchaser a $10 discount. So it's not like they're cutting down on the price in terms of reducing the price of the product itself. It's just that they're reducing the cost to the consumer by and the Epic store is actually comping that $10 to the essentially for the customer, and not so much the seller.
Yeah,
the seller's still getting the money at $60. So the controversy comes from, especially with something like that, is whether you're reducing the value, the seed value of a game because at some point some people were able to buy the pre-order a $60 game at $50, which
Hmm.
honestly to me that is not really a big deal because I have pre-ordered games before at a discount. Like I last year I pre-ordered Vampire for like it was like $40, $45 at a discount for pre-ordering it on Amazon Prime because it was less it would otherwise it would have been like $60 or something. And I wanted a physical copy, so I pre-ordered it on Amazon.
Hmm.
And like did it was the game did that reduce the value of the game at launch?
Well, I think it's a perception thing, right?
Yeah, it's a
One thing,
perception.
one thing is, oh, if you pre-order, you get a discount. Like
Hmm.
part of the pre-order and pre-order culture is, or order culture, ordering culture, really, is that if you buy now, you save money, right?
Well, you get this tacked on
Or
stuff
you
that we
tacked on,
tack
or you
on
save
later.
money, or whatever. Right? You get more for the value, what have you, right? The problem is that if you go into a sale, you categorize this as a mega epic sale, right? That is different. That's like, oh, the product exists and we're just discounting it for shits and giggles, right? Right.
Yeah.
And so it cheapens the product in the sense like, oh, wait a minute, you're asking me for this game to be at $60, but really you're perfectly willing to cut down the price, which means maybe this game is not as valuable as you're saying it is. Why should I buy it at 60 when it's back on 60? When in fact the game is, I don't know, worth 50 or something, right? It's a matter of perception, especially when you discount heavily a game before or even shortly after launch. The
Hmm.
feeling is like, oh, people are not buying this game. That's why you're heavily discounting it because it's not really worth whatever amount of money. I mean, it could be worth $10, but within a week you discount it, you're 50% off. You're like, oh well, the reason why people are not buying this game is because it's not worth $10. It might be worth $5. So why don't you offer $5 in the first place? Even though again, it's all about perception and the value of any
Yeah,
given thing is malleable. But I think more of the point is just control, right? Companies are used to being able to, here's what happened with Steam. Steam said, I'm going to have a sale. They announce the sale first to their vendors. They're the vendors, the people who, publishers. And the publishers decide to opt in or not and decide
yeah,
how much, right? Because Steam has different tiers. Like, starts at 10%, 20%, etc. They want to set their own tier, like they want to do like 35%. They want to extend it. They want to be available only one day, but not 2 days. But sometimes it's just a day only, 24 hours, right?
yeah.
They want to have more
But
control about that. And
so I kind of have to. I agree with them wanting the control, especially at some point. There also could be like contractual obligation in terms of the price fixing thing that they have in terms of, oh, we could sell it cheaper online for XYZ reasons, the reasons we've discussed about, you're not having to employ somebody at a physical store and all that upkeep and all that infrastructure. And we could probably get away with selling it for a lot less, but why would we sell it cheaper online and discourage people buying physical copies at stores and stuff? There's like contractual things like that.
mhm.
Those are violating it. But I kind of have to disagree in terms of like the perspective, because I would hope, and maybe I'm just being too giving credit to the public and players and stuff, that um I would hope that people wouldn't think it's like, oh, at one point, for like a week, I could have pre-ordered this game for $50, and oh, it must not be worth $50 at launch. And I was able to pre-order this game a year ago for $50 one week, and but it's out now and in a year from now, because at least the Bloodlines 2 is not scheduled to come out until like March 2020. So that's like a long time away. It's like, is anyone even going to remember that? Like
Yeah,
when it
probably
launched?
not. No,
And
but
that's the thing that I feel like, okay, you guys are being ridiculous when in terms of like, oh, it's going to decrease the value of my thing. It's like, well, then I think that you might have like an issue in terms of like prices and stuff then. Like
yeah.
maybe you kind of have to turn around and look at your prices and your price fixing, because I don't understand what would be the difference. I don't see that much of a difference when PlayStation has similar sales sometimes. Sometimes they have this thing where you don't get the discount right away. You'll get like
A
they'll have
rebate.
yeah, you'll get a rebate. It's like, hey, you spent $50 at the PlayStation Store on whatever you want. It doesn't matter between these dates. We will after a week or two, we'll send you a $10 code for credit, store
Mm.
credit. And I've done those. Like, isn't that kind of the same thing?
Yeah, but the thing with sales is that in many ways, sales is a bit of an alchemy thing. It's almost always by perception, and they don't. I think that they're setting that as a main responsibility. I think the like you said, we both agree. I think it's the control issue, right?
Yeah.
But they're also saying that as well, like because they also don't want to signal other stores to do the same thing, right? Like, well, you're devaluing because basically what they're saying to the Epic is that you're devaluing your stock.
So and to me that just tells that to me just speaks, and I'm surprised no one's talked about that or even mentioned that idea. That to me says that you have no faith in your product. You don't think your product's worth that much then, or at least you don't. I lost the words. You have no
Confidence?
confidence. You have no confidence in your product. If somebody is willing to pay an extra, pay somebody's way $10, give them $10 to buy my game, so they only have to pay 50, but I still get $60, my asking price. Oh no, that's going to devalue my game that's going to come out in a year. Like,
Yeah, I mean, well, I think anybody who's in sales kind of feels a bit twitchy about selling stuff, even the best
and
salesman.
and
And I
yeah,
think
and
that's a psychological that's a psychology that's working in this
and
situation.
to be
Right?
honest, this entire story, I think this is just hating on the Epic Store game for the sake of it, because that's the popular thing to do. That's, to me, that's what a lot of that stands for, like this entire
The
controversy.
backlash of the backlash.
Yeah, that's exactly what I see it as. It's like, oh, you guys are just hating, you guys are just all discussing this because it's the popular thing to do. And to me, because
Well,
I think the gaming publishers and stuff are in the wrong. It's like, really, like, you're still getting your money, and isn't that what you guys care about?
yeah, but I think going back to control and going by the next news, that the fact that Epic right now
Yeah.
hasn't even implemented and will probably not implement it until between 6 months to a year from now, a shopping cart, right?
Yeah, see, and now that's that's a more like actual good criticism and something to actually good to shit on them. It's
Not
like,
only do they don't have a shopping cart, during this mega sale, if you buy way too many games, I don't know how many that means, 3, 4, 5, or how quickly you do it, they will in fact sort of say, no, stop, we're not allowing you
yeah,
to buy more games.
they will lock down your account and
Yeah.
be like, oh, we think you're a fraudulent account that's buying games, probably using somebody else's credit card. And
On one hand, anti-fraud services are a good idea, right? But on the other hand, if you're gonna, I mean, it's gonna happen because you don't have a shopping cart and you haven't. The reason you're doing this is a cheap way to do anti-fraud without actually doing anti-fraud. The encryption, all the encryption algorithms that go with the shopping cart and card verification and all that. You haven't put the time and effort to do that because you want to be out and just want to sell as many copies as possible. And I think when you combine the two stories and other stories we heard about Epic, again, Epic is not your friend. Companies are your friends. They don't want to compete with Steam. They want to literally steamroll Valve. They want to hurry. They want to dominate the market. And once they do that, they're not gonna do anything to change things. They don't care. And I think the problem is that Valve doesn't seem to be doing anything about it either. They seem to be still comfortable in the idea that we're okay. So competition really is not working here because we're not really seeing improvements on Steam side, on Valve side through to Steam Store, and we're seeing Epic sort of not really put in the quality of life stuff that you expect. And yeah, it's new, but if if this was 19, is this 2005 or 2004, right? If you're looking at the original page for Valve Store, which really was a spreadsheet, an ugly spreadsheet, which it was brown, it was black, yellow, and orange. Okay, fine, I get it. But this is 2019, where every store, if you build a website on, I don't know, one of those websites that get announced in all the podcasts, they probably have an inbuilt shopping cart in it. You just have to add the feature. That's it. You go to Etsy and all that, they have that feature for you. So, it doesn't make any sense. Other than they're just cutting corners in other places, right?
And I don't understand. Like, how do you not have like a shopping cart? Like, call me naive when it comes to building a website, but couldn't you just like buy that like template for your website or pay for it? Like,
it depends.
You have money.
If you can hire someone from the outside, right, to do it for you, which that's what basically happens when you go into one of those things that you make websites like WordPress and stuff like that, or you have to do it in house. And my guess is that they're trying to do it in house, for whatever reason.
I don't understand. You guys have money. Pay somebody.
I guess it's also about priorities as well, right? It's just like,
no, we gotta work on. We can't work on making a shopping cart for a website. We gotta take over the video game industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it seems like. It's a bit ridiculous.
And by the way, some of the games that get pulled out include, sorry about that, sorry noise.
Oh yeah, no,
we forgot to Borderlands 3, which used to be an Epic exclusive.
Yeah, that's the other part we sort of forgot to talk about, is that as a reaction to people wanting to stay in control, they've been shutting off pages for these games that people, the developers or whatnot, like, no, you can't sell our game at essentially at a $10 discount, kind of.
And some developers actually raise prices, even though Epic was paying the offset and about $10 again. I'll tell you another thing about Control is that, again, sort of would-be monopoly, is that, okay, Epic is doing that now. There's no guarantee they're going to continue doing this, right?
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that they're going to continue, because once they, elbowed everyone out, there's like, okay, fine. Now we don't have to do it anymore.
Well, and the thing is, too, it's like, what I found funny about that was that freaking Randy Pitchford was all like, hey, you can pre-order Borderlands 3 at a $10 discount right now on the Epic Store. And then it's like, oh no, then they took the page down.
Randy.
And not only that, they kind of took it a step further, and they changed their website too, their own Borderlands 3 website, to say like, oh, you can buy it on PC coming soon, instead of like a direct link to the page on the Epic Store.
Yeah. Talking about games, from Kotaku, Riot Games to make mobile version of League of Legends with Tencent. So now we're getting closer to our talk of the day. Riot Games developing a mobile version of League of Legends alongside Chinese tech company Tencent, Reuters said today in a report confirmed by Kotaku. Game is not a one-to-one port, blah blah. Gameplay is built for mobile. So I guess more crunch time for the Rioteers. Now they have to both crank out a reduced version of League of Legends. They're also going to have to support it as well alongside regular League of Legends if it actually sells. And by the way, one of the reasons why Epic Games has a deep war chest is not merely because of Fortnite, another popular free-to-play mega game service. It's also because Tencent, same company here, is giving money, a significant portion of money, and bankrolling Epic. So the connections, they just keep on building.
Well, then also,
and by the way, Tencent just flat out owns Riot.
Oh yeah, so it's like, so I'm just wondering. So are is your account going to be like cross compatible with this mobile things? Like, oh, you're going to have to re-unlock and buy all the skins for your heroes and stuff.
I would not be surprised. Well,
It
if
was
it's not a one-to-one port,
yeah.
the
I'm like,
gameplay is
well,
built on mobile. I mean, skins are skins, right? I suppose if the skin exists, if the version of the skin exists in one game and other, I don't see a problem. Most of the stuff is just skins and stuff like that, so it shouldn't be a problem. But they could say, well, it could be like a Destiny thing. Well, like, oh, this it's a new game, so all the stuff you had in the old Destiny, well, yeah, and I have to pay for it now again, right? It's a
yeah.
different game because it's not a one-to-one port. I guess I don't know why they can't make a one-to-one port because the League of Legends is an old fucking game. It's like what 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
Maybe it has to do with the controls and limitations.
That too, yeah. But even
Unless you're
then,
gonna-
you could fairly do point and click because League of Legends controls are not that complicated. It's more about speed than anything else. So, but talking about Riot Games, we talked about last week how Riot Games had a group of Riot Games employees walked out in protest because Riot Games had them sign arbitration in their contracts when it came to complaining about their bosses, right? And any labor problems had to go through arbitration, including having your COO fart in your face, sexual harassment of the tops, and just a hellish crunch time for everybody. So now the sponsor Riot Games. Riot Games will not allow employees to opt out of arbitration despite major walkout. This is from Polygon. I am gonna put this on the link so people can follow it. That's right. Riot Games being really shitty.
Yeah, but essentially it's kind of like, well, if you don't like it, well, too bad.
And this is their statement, as quoted by Polygon. Ultimately, given the complexity of ongoing litigation, we will not change our employee agreements while in active litigation. As somebody who went to law school, that's bullshit. The statement explains, we know not everyone agrees with this decision. We also know that everyone does want Riot to continue to improve. We remain committed to having a firm answer around extending an opt-out to all Rioteers when active litigation concludes. So, what the hell does that mean? Does it mean that, well, if we weren't handling this litigation, maybe we could change arbitration? So people are talking about maybe another walkout or talking about forming a union. You could put some little pressure on the people that are already suing us so they don't sue us, stop suing us. And then we can talk about doing the very thing that protects us even more from litigation.
No. Ugh, it's like, hey, stop
Yes.
suing us, and then maybe we could change our ways, but we're being sued, so we can't.
Yeah, it almost feels like, why are you hitting yourself? Stop hitting yourself. If you didn't hit yourself, we wouldn't hit you while hitting yourself. With our hand on your hand hitting yourself. Because you're hitting yourself. Stop doing that, please. I'm like, what? And explains in the article, so people know what I'm talking about, arbitration system through which is decided to private process instead of legal system. Employees subject to mandatory arbitration can no longer sue for violations of many important employment laws, including rights to minimum wages and overtime pay, crunch, rest breaks, crunch, protection against discrimination and unjust dismissal, crunch, and sexual harassment, and privacy protection, sexual harassment, family leave, crunch, and other states and federal employment rights. So, the two things that Riot is it's being accused of: excessive crunch and harassment, physical as well as mental and sexual harassment on the job. Oh dear. Oh, Riot. Well, CD Projekt Red is listening to you guys, and they said on Player.one that in an interview with Kotaku, let's go to the interview with Kotaku because let's go from the closer to the source. And Cyberpunk 27 development intensifies. CD Projekt Red pledges to be more humane to its workers. This is an interview with Jason Schreier. We are known to let me be humble for a moment. We are known for treating games with respect. Gamers with respect. Say Marcin in whiskey. It's a Polish name. I apologize. The company confided to me, this is what we've been working hard toward, and I actually would like for us to be known for treating developers with respect. Oh, fair enough. One of the ways company claims to do is, through a non-obligatory crunch policy that isn't brand new, but that the Warsaw-based CD Projekt plans to push harder. Want to make it clear to Cyberpunk 2077 level that even when the studios ask them to work on nights and weekends, it's not mandatory. So when your boss says, "Hey, Steve, could you stay on Saturday, this Saturday?" Right? And where are those TPS reports? You could tell them to F off.
It's like, well, no, I don't have enough time. I'll get them to you tomorrow. Yeah, so it's like, hey, the game's not done on the day that you and your developer or your publisher wanted it done. Oopsie. I guess we got it, like we didn't want to overwork ourselves, so I guess you guys will have to push it back, right?
And Iwinski continues. We've been working hard towards it for some time already, the policy. We've been communicating clearly to people that, of course, there are certain moments when they need to work harder. Yeah, that's the problem right there. Crunch as working harder. Because normally people don't work hard, I guess. They just sort of do stuff.
Coast. Yeah,
I guess coast. They're like, computer, make me a game. Oh, you didn't do it right. Okay, now we have to work on it. Come on. We want to be more humane. Chapamon, I think, without mentioning where you work, does that sound familiar to you, doesn't it? In a different context.
Yep.
Yeah, if you hear a bark in the background, don't be surprised. But we want more humane and treat people with respect. Okay, that's fair enough. If they need to take time off, they can take time off. Nobody will frown upon it if this will be requested. But the problem is, if your boss tells you to stay on Saturday and you tell them, "Hey, well, Saturday's my day off," it's like, oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
You're not such a team worker. And the other people around who have to do the job for you because you're not there are going to go like, "Thanks, Timmy. Thanks a bunch." And you forgot about the TPS reports too, by the way. Yeah? Okay, fine. Have you ever... Has anybody actually worked in an office? Oh, dear God. I mean, if you listen to this, like, no. Of course, anyone who's worked anywhere, and this is Jason Strider talking, knows that a request from a boss doesn't need to be mandatory for it to be something you have to do. It's a request, not an order. Even though disobedience is something I've seen written in like paperwork, like this.
Yeah.
This employee has been disobedient, as if it were a dog or a army soldier, right? Where wouldn't promise to limit crunch to certain peers or to offer specific numbers. All that to say that he hoped making this public statement would help CD Projekt employees feel more comfortable. Yeah, it's a public statement. You don't have to make these public statements. In which case, public statements are for the public. Your employees are going to know if this is something you're actually doing by just talking in-house. Like, yeah, we're doing this. And then you see it, and they do it, and people may find out about it. You don't have to keep it a secret, but at the same time, you don't have to make a public statement. I think the only reason public statement might be there is that you can use it for future litigation. Well, they told publicly they were going to do this. This is a public policy, and I'm suing it because they're not following the public policy. So it's a bit of a risk, but not really. So I mean, I'm looking forward to Cyberpunk 2077 if I don't have to upgrade my machine first, even if I do. But guys, Solidarity will be very angry with you if they were still around.
Yeah.
It's a little Polish history in the Cold War, 1980s and 90s. Just Google it.
So, when it comes to something like this, like promising like lack of overtime and stuff, it's like, oh, we're not making. So I'm kind of in my line of work. It's like, no, we need people here. We can't just like, oh yeah, well, we can't get this job done. It's my day off, or, well, oh, look, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to drop everything and go home. Well, it doesn't work that way, especially when you have like other people that depend on you and you have lives at stake. Granted, this is video game development, and hopefully nobody's dying because everyone's leaving on time.
Well, one thing is that while maybe blind, but Kotaku, this is an older news. This is from Joshua Rivera on the 5th, yes, earlier this month on the 8th, talking about potentially workers working on Mortal Kombat 11 getting PTSD. Well, one of the reasons that the developers relying on college kids to, work for minimum wage, essentially. This is another round. The client request. You walk around the office and one would be watching hangings on YouTube. Another guy will be looking at pictures of murder victims. Someone else will be watching a video of a cow being slaughtered. They say the scary part was always the point which new people on the project got used to it. And I definitely hit that point. This is about watching very graphic, not about creating the game itself, which is fiction, but actually watching real life stuff to get the reference of real human beings and animals being slaughtered, to get the reference for the bloodshed in Mortal Kombat. Maybe there's a limit to realism. I don't know. That's just, I mean, I don't need it, I guess. I mean, it's always been a selling point of the series, but
yeah,
that's a bit too much.
Well, again, it would have to go be like, oh, only if you want to. But the thing is, with all of this sounds great, but in practice, it even if it's not your supervisor, your managers, or anybody higher up pressuring you, not making you work overtime, your team workers and your same level, like, co-workers are going to talk amongst themselves and kind of pressure you to work overtime. It's like, well, I keep working, 6-day work weeks when my boss asks me, like, John over there doesn't want to, like, work overtime when he's offered. He must not be a team player.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have that on your reviews as well. It's like, well, you don't ever stay overtime, on your performance review, so we're going to give you a low score on team player. Like, you work great when you're here, but you don't put in the extra time, so they're going to give you a low check on that.
You're not here enough, Timmy. The team really needs you, Timmy. Look at Linda, who hasn't washed her hair in 2 weeks because she sleeps under her desk and has mites on her hair. She doesn't
remember her kids' names.
Yeah, she had a kid once. I think social services took it from her because she wasn't there. But she's here. Now that's what we call Linda making a sacrifice for the team. Another example, so anonymous cinematic developer saying Mortal Kombat is Mortal Kombat. You start to feel like an idiot for thinking about what the impact of working on the game has been on yourself. Other people have been like, I know what I'm working on. I know that I got myself into here. And you start to blame yourself for being shitty or weak or spineless. Yeah. And that leads us invariably to something we're going to talk about, which is more of this, but more in depth, because there is a particular piece of news from the Riverfront Times. And we sort of talked about this before, even the same thing, but I think it's just, we got to keep talking about it because it keeps happening. Webster University game design program rocked by complaints and a resignation. This is by Danny Wisentowski. Again, Polish names. I apologize. I should know better, but there you go. Practice makes perfect. More than a dozen students and now a former adjunct professor say Webster University Games and Games Design program is facing a breakdown over its lead faculty member, Joshua Yates, who was the subject of a Title IX complaint from a female student in 2018. The student, which is named here, which is rare, but it is named, Tamsin Reed, graduated from just last weekend, earning a bachelor's degree after majoring in game design. Pray to God she doesn't end up at Riot Games or NetherRealms or BioWare or I could keep going. Epic Games. Can we just her original 2019 complaint to Riverfront Times where they said Yates was bragging to other students that Reed was coming on to him. Now, yeah, we all heard the stories about, basically female students sort of showing cleavage and stuff like that. That actually happens. But the professional response from a professor is no, we don't do that. You're supposed to be the adult in the situation, literally, because the other person might be 19 years old and you're like 39 or 49 or 59, right?
This isn't a setup to a fanfic or a porno.
Yeah, this is not a comedy of errors where, the professor smiles as he closes the door because there's a pretty girl behind him. Ray said other students told her about Yates' inappropriate comments. Her complaint included screen grabs of their reports, which included Yates asking that if Reed was the type of student who would have sex with a professor for a good grade.
Hmm.
And of course, the university failed to act according to her. That's why she raised a Title IX complaint. Tamsin Reed, she tweeted about it, and then another professor, a male professor, Rob M. Santos, I'm resigning from Western U to join student faculty in protesting sexual harassment and predatory academic conduct at the Game Dev program. Please share our stories. We can be found at webstergamedesign.com. These stories are better, it's not too late, etc. And explains that Title IX complaints are user based of 1972 federal civil rights law prohibiting the sex discrimination education program receiving federal funding. Title IX implementation is a highly fraught subject for university schools in Missouri across the country have been blasted not only by the victims, who are often encounter lack of transparency and accountability from officials, but also accused of violations who must defend themselves in a system that doesn't provide the due process right to regulate criminal courts. While Title IX complaints force focus on student-to-student interaction, recently directed as a professor running for a department that she's graduated from and the inappropriate conversations he had about her with other students. And it gives an example as well. Note T. Josh used to think that you were flirting with him to get a good grade. He mentioned how you dressed more and more revealing, and he was like, yeah, that's just her. She's sexy. It's a screen grab. You can look at the article if you want to. Why are we going to talk about this? Why are we going into detail on this article? Because it shows that there is something, I think, fundamentally wrong with game development culture. We often talk about gaming and gamers and, social justice warriors and all that, right? And the movement. But also game development itself seems to have some very specific problems. And one of them is sexual harassment. And one of them starts in the very schools that are supposed to train the developers that are going to be part of the business, right?
Yeah, and the fact that this professor's just so open about it, like, hey, I really like this one student, and just constantly just talking pretty sexually about her to other students in this course, in this program. It's like there's no, it just seems like, oh yeah, this is fine, this is how people act, this is normal. Like there's no sense of like, oh, what I'm doing is wrong.
And probably this person came from the video game industry, right? He was probably a developer, and like many professors in many places, you come from the very business that academia. And academia, many students also have this problem. That's why you're supposed to have Title IX protections, yeah, because it happens. But particularly in video games, we have this, we have the image of the wonderkin, right? The creative kids who just make these cool video games, and everybody's going to a campus, right? I was just playing Ni no Kuni 2, and they have an entire part with, sort of tech industry kind of thing where, an entire nation was described as a campus, and it was a vertical metal tree, and, the people having crunch and falling apart because they wanted to develop this great machine that their leader wanted for them because it's going to change the world, etc. Right? We have innovation and being cool, and long shots when people show the office, they always show the bean bags and the arcade machines in the corner. And it's like, oh, everybody seems to be very relaxed, but then you read these reports, and it's even though many video game designers are well paid, because of it or in spite of it, they seem to be pushed even further to the breaking point, men and women, right? And it also makes light of all the talk about diversity as well. oh, we're going back to Bioware. Oh, we're a company that has a lot of diversity by working our employees to the point where they they become quote unquote stress casualties,
Yeah, or
right?
Blizzard. The other story we reported that was rather underdeveloped about um, the former Blizzard employee Julio Murillo Saliar,
Mm-hmm.
that where he experienced a bunch of discrimination because of his ethnic background.
And the fact that he was a man as well. So the
Yeah,
combination of the two. Yes, you can harass a man as well, and not by other men, but in this case, it was a woman. Apparently, there were several women who
yeah.
harassed
So
him. Yeah.
it's not just even limited to just men harassing women. It seems to be the other way around too. Probably not as prevalent, but it happens.
And it comes from an industry that has an attitude because these are games that boys or kids would
Or
be
maybe
kids.
like bro culture
Yeah,
too.
bro culture, and either you're punching down or you're getting punched in the face, kind of thing, right? I think that seems to be the prevalent culture. And if it starts in these new colleges, which these programs are relatively new, but they're bringing old problems into the program, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and just it goes to excuse me, it kind of goes to like this seminar that or this talk I was talking about in my related industry. It's uh, like you can't at the same you can't just increase diversity by I'll I I found his words amusing. Some people might find it offensive. You can't take a brown person and put them in like a high position of power and expect them to succeed. It doesn't just work like that.
mhm.
You it's the same thing. You can't just take women and put them in a position that's mostly dominated to men and expect it to succeed and be diverse. No, there's more to it than that. It's you have to change your mentality too. You can't just act the same way because it's not like the times like every time you bring it up, garage coding. It's not those days anymore.
Yeah. I
Where
mean, I think what you're talking about is that it's it's step one out of a 15-step program or a 20-step
yes,
program. Yes, hiring the people,
yeah,
literally having diverse people is good, but
but
it's only
that's
the
not the end
beginning.
of it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not the end of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't equal diversity. You also have to be inclusive, welcome them, treat them correctly, and not to because just because hey, being a bro in this industry has always worked doesn't mean that it's always going to work. Essentially, it and of course then you get like the backlash when it comes to like, well, then why do we even want these people in our spaces? It's invading my space, bro. And
Yeah, I mean, again, talking about this last week, I think it kind of worked because you do hear a lot of some stories of people, building their own companies and breaking up and stuff like that. There's limits to the bro culture. It's just that the literally was like a room, like 5 people in a room, 10 people at
yeah,
most, right? The they got along as long as they were being successful and they were sharing the houses and staying late and you were 19, 20, 21, and it was everybody's dream, everybody's on board, so could do that until many times they became successful. It's like, well, I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to buy my
well,
own company and stuff like
yeah,
that.
you become essentially your own company. You like your own
Boss.
industry,
Yeah.
your own whatever business inc.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you can't just act like you're in college all the time. You can't run a business successfully like that. You have to there are like all these laws and stuff, and you actually have to have a human resource department. I mean, just as I mean, that doesn't always work necessarily having a human resource department. Just
Mm.
ask Channel Awesome.
Or it could be the opposite. Right? The human requirement actually covers for a lot of this stuff rather than, they have to cover liability rather than actually, enforce the laws. But I mean, let's talk about simple things like calling your office a campus.
Hmm.
The idea being that this is an open space for ideas. It's sort of a continuation of the ease of being in college, right? You work whenever you want to. You do because you have a work at 5. This one person works 3 hours this day and then 8 hours the other day, and they get a Tuesday off. apparently breezy college experience, which some people is very breezy, for a lot of people is very stressful, right? Because even though you only go to class maybe 3 hours a day, you have to work afterwards, 5, 10, 15 hours or do something else, right? So it's supposed to have this idea and this beautiful buildings, and like I said, you have the video games, fashion video games, so you can play Pac-Man whenever you want to on the bean chairs, and you've seen the movies, right? People listening to their iPods and like
they have catering or like
yeah, they have these huge
cafeterias,
yeah, and let's cut the crap. You're there to work. And I take God the crap, not the employees. I mean, that's just, I'm talking about the management, right? You expect these people to work for you. Build them an office. Expect them to be there from 9 to 5 or from 8 to 4, how we do it here, Monday to Friday.
Yeah. And the catering stuff, that's great. Especially like if you want to sort of increase productivity, but that's been opt-in things like, hey, look, we brought food for you so you don't have to, spend an hour going out to go get something to eat. You could just take half an hour and the food's here. And,
yeah, but stuff like that also is like, it feels like a parent talking to its child. Well, I give you a roof, I give you food, you can't complain, right? So when they're spending their weekends sleeping under their desk, it's like, but hey, you got catering, you have this huge cafeteria. Why are you complaining?
You got a lounge.
You got a lounge. You just got to go and rest over there. And so, of course, the lounge is in front of these massive windows, and nobody wants you going like, snoring. And
the lounge is being occupied by the other like 10 employees.
Yeah, sleeping your ass off. They don't show that when they do the tour to the publications, right? Get out, and we talk about solutions here. Get away from the campus ideology. It sounds great, but it doesn't work really. At least to me, it's just like, yeah, you're not making video. Another thing is like making video games is not in itself a game, right? Don't treat it as such. Treat it as what it is, job. Because these are millions of dollars you're spending to make a game, right? Well, treat it like a multi-million-dollar job. You're paying tens of thousands, 100,000s per employees. Treat them like, they are worth the money that you're spending on them.
Yeah, and you can have like your little freebie events like that. There was the video you linked on the Telltale documentary by NoClip.
Mm-hmm.
In it, they mentioned like, oh yeah, we had like this great day where we were just going through the script. We all went outside, went to the park, and like acted out when they were the Telltale team was working on like their Jurassic Park game, and it's like have days like that where you're like, hey, casual like a casual Friday, but maybe more like, well, let's take our laptops and work outside. We're not having to do something like work on something a rig that requires massive processing power. Let's go outside. It's a nice day. Let's encourage like having opening just to get the the creative juices flowing. Just
I mean it is a sorry to interrupt. It's a creative process, and I understand you doing that.
Have days like that, but don't encourage like that's not how you run a business. Have those days every day where it's like, hey, let's be outside and I don't sing Mary Poppins.
Yeah, don't take it for granted that that's gonna give you results every single time, right? It's more of, hey, listen, it works. Okay, fine. It worked one time. Sure. Make an allowance for it, but don't use it as a substitute for, hey, again, 9 to 5. You have X amount of weeks, months, and years to make this thing, right? You can't spend 3 or 4 years without guidance, right? I used to make great games, but then, the Peter Molyneux effect, right? I can make great games, but now I became somebody who talks about games but actually doesn't make them, so I got a little bit lost. Like we said this before, and I said this again. I think there is on many levels, not just one or two, at many levels, the industry has to rethink how video games are made, right? How you have leadership in teams, how employees are treated, whether or not there should be unions, and I do believe that everybody should be in a union. How do you treat your time and your effort, right? Who has a responsibility and who bears really their burden when things go wrong? Management, mostly, right? and dealing with something like harassment and stuff like that, right? Because the these stories are coming out, but at least I don't see it. In fact, Super Bonnie Hop, when he talked about GDC, which GDC is the where the industry talks about itself and how it makes things, I thought, and I was way wrong on this, that this was sort of free flowing of ideas because that's how it's sold, right? No, it's a heavily manicured, heavily advertised, and you know, environment. Very expensive to go to GDC, by the way, unless your company pays for it. Sort of quasi self-examination tool, but really it serves more to reinforce ideas, pre-existing ideas, like, oh, this is what happened in GDC. Okay, but why did it happen in GDC? Well, because that's where we want to go anyway. So we just sort of, and even the mea culpas and the self-examinations are more like, well, if we have to admit something, might as well admit this, but we'll make it better anyway, so don't worry about it. I think, and that's in Super Bonnie Hop's video about unionizing, which I think everybody should to watch. So just go over to Super Bonnie Hop's YouTube channel and do that. And yeah, I mean, and there's also a lot of waste. Crunch time is wasted money. Harassment leads to people leaving and having high turnaround. And this is, this is a business that is a creative endeavor. That means that the people who have the creative juices, you can't just swap one person to the other. They have a certain style, they have a certain vision. Having a game succeed or fail, so many games fail, like so many businesses, because they don't get their act together, right? And in many ways, I think one of the underlying reasons why these huge AAA companies want all the money and they're so desperate, I always sense that there's a sense of desperation in it. Like they know that any moment somebody could just close the game is not going to sell and it's going to crash and the whole house of cards is going to collapse on itself. But if it does, it happens because people keep, flicking the cards away, right? And there shouldn't be a house of cards in the first place. And, somebody really has to, or a lot of people sit around and go like, okay, we're effing up. We need to do things. We have to go back, ironically, to the promise that companies like EA and Activision made back in the early 80s, that they were going to do things differently. And they were going to change the way things were done.
And of course, it's not just that too. They have to hold themselves accountable to be able to do that. It's like you're bringing up people lost, like this whole thing with the Title IX suit. Like one professor left because I'm like, yeah, I see the sexism. People like he saw it like. Yeah, students talk to me like, oh yeah, mention that like, oh, that professor totally has the hots for that one student, and it's like, no, like nothing's getting done. That's why I left.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of hard, especially when you're an employee as well, right? But yeah, and that's another thing is like we have people, and I have to call out. This is welcome to Call Out Culture, the Lessons Learned podcast version of Call Out Culture. Outfits like IG as Inside Gaming and Extra Credits, because they have this sort of inside gaming, inside sports, inside the game, inside the we know what's really happening, and therefore we're going to give you the industry line on this. We're going to make a video that justifies why
why bro culture is okay and sexual harassment is too.
Yeah, and microtransaction. Well, you have to pay for microtransactions because video games are getting very expensive. Yeah, we're gonna have a video because we really don't explain it, but trust us, it's very expensive. Including the fact that we casually say that yes, people are gonna sleep on their desk because it's just something that happens. It's like, and really changing the way things are. Not gonna work.
It's one thing to recognize there's a problem. Like, yeah, there's people sleeping at desks, but that's another just to miss it. Oh yeah, that's just the nature of the beast. And
or IG saying, oh yeah, riot. They're going to walk out. Great, yay. But unions. What the fuck? No, unions. Union. No, that's gonna make your games more expensive and take longer. And it's like,
Well,
Bitch, games are
especially
changing.
like, what if our employees want to unionize us as like a small business
Yeah.
in gaming culture and YouTube? We wouldn't want that. Let's not talk about it. It might trickle down.
Yeah. Warner Brothers might actually sell us to the win or something. So don't say that. Yeah. I mean, it's if it's gone to the point where it's going down to literally people. This is just one example, but I'm sure there's plenty of more examples like this, right? Or it might be that it isn't really happening across these, these programs. Maybe this is one off. But then when they go from the program, like, hey, I'm gonna play in video games, and I have, I don't know, $100,000 debt because private universities are very expensive, and I go to Riot Games, and the first thing that happens is the COO passes by and farts in my face, and then I'm expected to work 80 hours a week. The kind of thing that makes a Japanese salaryman go like, "Nani?" Right? It's not work. So, and I think we have to keep talking about this. We who are the consumers, right? Because one of the things about the video I mentioned, Inside Gaming, is that in a way the discussion is always framed, well, if we do these things and you, the consumer, are going to suffer, right? Because the games are have to be even more expensive, and it's going to take longer, and maybe quality is going to drop because people are not putting the hard work. It's like, bitch, games are already suffering, and games are already getting more expensive, and you're charging us for an arm and leg. I got Sims for free, and I just got basically the most vanilla version of the game. It costs about anywhere between $200 to $2,000 for a game that you already made 5 times already. So don't give me that. It's just frustrating.
And the thing that the article too just kind of like, I feel bad for the victim here. I don't get her name right. It's Telsem Reed. So the victim here, like, here she is going to school, getting a higher education, probably putting herself in debt to go into an industry, and already like that's just so toxic with sexism and crunch and stuff. And she's already got firsthand experience. Like, she even says in the article, it's like, well, it's like, I knew I was going in. This is something I was going to have to expect as a woman going into the industry. First of all, that sucks. But like, I wasn't expecting to have to deal with it at school, like learning about the industry. That's almost like a whole new level. This is almost like
But no safe spaces, bro. There are no safe spaces, bro.
This is almost like it'd be like, this would be a good meta, like, educational thing. Like, oh yeah, like, I totally didn't mean all of that. This was all unjust. This is just to highlight, like, the sexism and the stuff that you're already face. Are you really sure you want to get into this industry? Like,
yeah, hazing, basically. That's what it is, hazing.
Yeah,
literally.
It's almost like taking, but like, like in like way too extremes. Like, wow. It's almost like when I interview people, I'm like, you're gonna get yourself into a lot of things. I paint an ugly picture, but I don't like constantly harass people about it. Like,
yeah.
wow.
So that's a very depressing show for you guys today.
Yeah, like, it makes me glad that I didn't go into video game design. I honestly contemplate and apply to like a game design program college when I was younger.
Yeah, I would have gone that route too if I had the chance, but alas, I guess I dodged that bullet. So yeah, that's been today's program, folks. I hope you stomached it. I guess I don't think you enjoyed it, but we're just gonna face the facts. Might as well. So Chapamon, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chapamon pretty much everywhere. I am Chapamon_Aragon on Twitch and Twitter, and I hang out primarily on YouTube as Chapamon.
And of course, you can find me here on the Lessons Learned podcast, and every Wednesday or Thursday, we have to change it over. And I just finished Ni no Kuni 2, and tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, I start with an edition of The Sims 4, the free version, the vanilla version of Sims 4, just to check it out, just to see what it's all about, because I haven't played The Sims in whatever. So doing that, I'm probably going to be jumping around a little bit of game from game until Urban Warfare expansion DLC drops for Battletech. So we probably next month we go back to Battletech, because Giant fucking robots that blow each other up and everything else. Why the fuck no? So thank you everybody for coming, and as always, we'll see you when we see you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.